Beneath the golden haze of late summer, the royal gardens seemed almost unreal, like a postcard too perfect to be true. Birds hopped across the clipped hedges, the fountains shimmered under the light, and the children of the Prince and Princess of Wales were free to play without the weight of crowns or cameras. George stacked his sandcastle with quiet focus, Charlotte chased after a ball with the sharp precision of a future athlete, and little Louis wandered toward a butterfly, his laughter rising and falling like a melody in the breeze. It was one of those rare days where duty was forgotten, replaced by a brief taste of ordinary family joy. Kate, standing nearby in a pale green dress, carried that serenity in her gaze, while William's watchful eyes scanned the horizon, protective but softened by his children's delight. That illusion of peace shattered in an instant. From the far side of the garden, Camilla's Jack Russell mix tore across the lawn like a cannonball. The dog was small, but its energy was fierce, its paws pounding the grass with single-minded purpose. It wasn't just running, it was charging. Before anyone could react, Louis, still trailing after his butterfly, became the target. The bark ripped through the air like an alarm, and the collision knocked him down hard onto the grass. His scream cut through the garden, louder than any bell. Kate's heels dug into the earth as she sprinted toward him, her dress fanning out as she scooped him into her arms. His face was pale, his tiny arms scratched, his sobs spilling out in sharp bursts that pierced through every watching guest. William's expression darkened. He stormed across the lawn, his voice booming with a fury rarely seen in public. His shout wasn't just a name, it was an accusation. Heads turned, conversations died. Even the sparrows seemed to fall silent as William's glare fixed on the Queen. Camilla, comfortably seated under a parasol with a glass of wine in hand, looked up as though she were being inconvenienced, not confronted. Her dog, oblivious, nestled against her side, wagging its tail as if nothing had happened. "Good heavens, what's this about?" she asked, her tone light but defensive, her scarf catching the breeze like a banner raised for battle. "What's this about?" William snapped, pointing toward Louis, clinging to his mother's shoulder and still trembling. "Look at my son. Look at what your dog just did." Without waiting for an answer, he lifted Louis into his own arms and strode toward the palace, his steps heavy with outrage. The sunlight, which moments ago seemed so warm, now felt suffocating. Guests exchanged uneasy glances, sensing something larger than a simple mishap had just been set in motion. Inside, under the glow of a chandelier, the royal physician confirmed Louis's injuries were only minor. Just scratches, nothing lasting, but William stood in the corner, arms crossed, jaw set tight, while Kate comforted her son. It wasn't about the physical wound anymore, it was about the fear etched into Louis's eyes. "This wasn't an accident," William muttered under his breath, his voice sharp enough for Kate alone to hear. "That dog didn't just play, it targeted him." Kate's hand froze as she smoothed Louis's hair. She searched her husband's face, hesitant to ask the question forming on her lips. William didn't wait for her to speak. "Camilla," he said, the name like a verdict. "Either she's reckless to a dangerous degree, or she wanted this to happen." The following morning, William's footsteps echoed through Buckingham's halls as he went to confront the Queen directly. The reception room was rich with oil paintings and silk drapes, yet the air was cold. Camilla sat poised, Molly curled at her feet, her sapphire scarf gleaming as if she had dressed for war. "I assume you're here about yesterday," she said before William could even open his mouth. His reply came low and sharp. "Your dog attacked my son." Camilla stroked Molly's fur, her lips curving faintly. "It was overexcited, an unfortunate accident." William's fists clenched behind his back. "You call a terrified child an accident?" His voice thundered, startling the dog. Camilla's eyes narrowed, her calm mask cracking. "Perhaps it simply doesn't get along with Louis," she murmured. The words floated in the room like poison, subtle but unmistakable. William's silence after them was heavier than any roar. In that moment, a line had been crossed, not by teeth and claws, but by words meant to cut deeper. The king's entrance was as sudden as a door slammed shut. Charles stepped into the reception room wearing a plain gray suit, his face etched with the weary lines of a man long accustomed to putting out fires within his own family. His gaze flicked from William's furious stance to Camilla's icy composure, and then to the small dog at her feet. For a moment, silence reigned, the only sound the crackling fire in the marble hearth. Enough, Charles said, his tone low but firm. This family has endured worse storms. We will not let scratches turn into a scandal. His words might have calmed others, but for William, they landed like stones tossed onto burning coals, making the flames rise higher. I'm not speaking of scratches. William shot back, his voice tight, his fist clenched. I'm speaking of negligence. Louis is frightened to step into a garden he once loved, and he jabbed a finger toward Camilla, calls it a misunderstanding. Camilla's hands stiffened around the armrest of her chair, her rings glinting in the firelight, her lips curved into something between a smile and a sneer. Children cry, William. Dogs bark. That is life. If you want to call every tumble an attack, perhaps you should keep your children inside, wrapped in silk and silence. The words were venom dressed as reason, and they cut through William like a blade. His jaw worked, but before he could unleash another torrent, Charles raised a hand, the weight of a crown behind the gesture. Enough, both of you. His voice cracked with authority, but his eyes betrayed fatigue. The confrontation left the room thick with tension, a fog that clung even as William stormed out, his boots striking the marble like war drums. Camilla sat motionless, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, but her eyes burned with a resentment she didn't dare voice. Charles lingered by the fire, staring at the flames as though searching for answers in their shifting dance. That night, the walls of Kensington Palace echoed with quiet unease. Louis clung to Kate's side, his small body trembling whenever he heard the distant bark of a dog on the estate. Kate, her face pale and drawn, hummed lullabies into the dark, her voice soft but tinged with exhaustion. She whispered reassurances, but her own heart raced with questions she dared not speak aloud. Was William right? Could Camilla truly harbor malice? Or was this simply an accident magnified by fear and suspicion? The uncertainty gnawed at her, leaving her sleepless even as Louis finally drifted off. William, pacing in his study, found no such doubts. The plush toy dog that had arrived that afternoon only deepened his conviction. Its fur, crafted to mirror Molly's white and brown coat, seemed to leer at him from the table. The card, written in Camilla's elegant script, offered Louis friendship with fairy companion. To anyone else, it might have seemed like kindness. To William, it was a taunt, a cruel reminder of his son's terror wrapped in velvet words. He crushed the card in his fist, his breath coming hard through gritted teeth. She's mocking him, he muttered, tossing the toy aside. Mocking us. The palace staff whispered in hushed tones, aware that something dangerous simmered just beneath the gilded surface. Servants spoke of William's dark glares, Camilla's cold stares, and the king's silence, as if the corridors themselves had become battlegrounds of loyalty. Every rustle of silk, every creak of floorboards seemed charged with suspicion. And then came the discovery that turned William's suspicions into certainty. In the quiet of the laundry, Louis's grass-stained shirt from that day still lingered on a shelf. As William lifted it, intending to hand it off to a servant, but the scent that rose from it froze him in place. A perfume, sharp and unmistakable, clung to the fabric, the very fragrance Camilla favored at banquets. It was too strong, too deliberate to be chance. He stood in the dim room, the shirt hanging limp in his hands, his heart pounding with a clarity he couldn't ignore. Whether it was carelessness or something darker, Camilla's presence lingered on his son like a mark. The thought ignited his anger anew. To him, it was no accident that Molly had been drawn to Louis. It was the scent of a queen's claim, invisible but undeniable, and it left William certain that what had begun as scratches in a garden had now carved itself into the heart of the monarchy. The chandeliers of Buckingham Palace gleamed like frozen stars, but their light could not soften the atmosphere inside the king's private hall. William stood in the center of the room, shoulders squared, his navy suit pressed but strained by the tension in his frame. His eyes locked onto Camilla, who reclined in a velvet chair, her sapphire dress flowing like a river of defiance. Molly rested at her feet, unaware it had become a symbol of division. Charles lingered by the fireplace, his hand pressed to his forehead, as if the weight of 1,000 crowns bore down at once. "I've uncovered the truth," William said, his voice carrying the stillness of a blade drawn in silence. He held the tiny shirt in his hands, the faint scent of perfume lingering. "Louis's clothes bore your mark, Camilla. Your perfume. That's what set your dog off. Not mischief, not chance. He was reacting to you." His tone wasn't shouting anymore. It was calm, precise, and far more dangerous. Camilla's lips tightened, her jaw shifting as she sought words. Finally, she released a faint laugh, brittle as glass. "So now I'm guilty of perfume? William, really, you would tear down this family over the fragrance of a queen?" "It's not fragrance," William snapped, stepping closer. "It's neglect. A child left scarred and terrified because you think rules don't apply to you." His eyes burned, but his voice lowered, measured. "You put my son in danger. That will not happen again." Charles raised a hand as if to stem a tide. "Enough. We will not destroy ourselves over this." His voice carried authority, but beneath it trembled exhaustion. "Camilla, you must accept caution. William, you must temper your fire. This family cannot fracture over a dog." But William didn't yield. His eyes never left Camilla. "I want one assurance," he said, his words deliberate, ringing through the hall like the toll of a bell. "Molly will never be near my children again. Not in gardens, not in corridors, nowhere." The demand fell like a gavel. Silence followed, heavy as stone. Camilla's hands clenched on the chair's arms, her knuckles pale against jeweled rings. She turned to Charles, searching for rescue, but his eyes carried only helplessness. This battle was hers to fight. At last, she inhaled sharply, her voice flat and cold. "Very well. Molly will remain with me alone. But understand, William, this humiliation will not be forgotten." The king closed his eyes briefly, as though praying for calm. William nodded once, sharp and final. His gaze carved itself into Camilla's, as though sealing the line that had been drawn forever. In the days that followed, outward appearances returned to normal. At Kensington, Louise slowly found laughter again, guided by Kate's gentle songs and Charlotte's teasing games. George returned to his sandcastles, rebuilding towers in the garden where the sun still painted the roses gold. William resumed his public duties, his composure polished for cameras, his devotion to Kate and the children displayed like armor. Yet the calm was fragile, a glass shield hiding cracks too deep to mend. Every banquet William attended besides Camilla was weighted with unspoken tension. Her smile, elegant and poised, never reached her eyes when she looked at him. His polite nods were shields for the anger smoldering beneath. The plush toy dog remained hidden in a drawer at Kensington, untouched, a silent reminder of a wound that no titles or ceremonies could erase. The palace walls carried on their rituals, processions, dinners, handshakes with dignitaries, but behind every closed door lingered the echo of William's ultimatum and Camilla's reluctant surrender. The question of her judgment, her fitness, whispered through the corridors, never openly spoken but always present. Was she truly a queen protecting the monarchy or a reckless force endangering it? Under the glow of autumn light, the royal family continued their performance for the world, but within those marble halls, trust had fractured. And once broken, no crown, no oath, no carefully painted smile could fully mend it.